the table here. We don't want to make the other committees run late today. If we can avoid it. We don't want to be the fault. Oh, I'm not going to gavel them yet, Jim. Give me time.
What exactly have they told you that made you panic?
What'd you say?
What'd they tell you that made you panic?
Now?
Just a
All
rumor?
right.
Actors out of money, and aren't they the ones that are backing the solar project?
Yeah, sure.
We'll call the committee to order and ask for an approval of the minutes of the previous committee meeting minutes. We have a motion by Supervisor Simpson, seconded by Supervisor Brock. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. I'd like to welcome everyone that's new to our committee and some returning folks. We are now an 11-member committee, so we're one of the big ones. And the first thing we're going to get started with this morning is the Public Defender's Office. Marcy?
Good morning. I handed out my agenda to everyone. I'd like to start with something easy first. The request to amend the budget. What happened last year, at the end of the year, we moved money into furniture and membership dues. It didn't get transferred into this year's budget because we didn't use it. We didn't get our purchase orders in by the end of the year. So that's the first part of the amendment. And the second one is for salary, Social Security, and Medicare. These are all coming from grants. The first two pieces, the furniture and membership, is from grant C 252, and the second one is for grant C 352, again, Office of Indigent Legal Services. So I'm just requesting the money to be transferred from last year into this year so we can spend state money.
All right, do we have a motion? Supervisor Frazier, second by Supervisor Montesi. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Okay. Next thing is grant 6 for oil. Office of Indigent Legal Services has set up the 6th grant for this coming year. It starts January 1st through December 31st of this year. At the end of this, I have to specifically request, according to Joanne McKinstry, that the resolution ratify the actions of the chairman of the board, and he will sign it before the resolution is adopted. The reason being, the grant has to be in on February 6th. The board meeting is later, so I'm asking that be done. The money for grant number 6 is, I attached the budget and the documentation for it. Legal Aid Society of Northeastern New York is a contracting agency with the assigned counsel office. They handle family court matters. They're requesting $15,000 for 3 years, and that's all they're requesting. The assigned counsel office is requesting nothing from it. I am requesting the rest of the money. The reason being, we have a grant for under C 352 for my confidential secretary to the first assistant, whose name is Gina Borkowski. She is funded fully by OIL's grant. It is a 3-year grant. Her grant ends on May 31st of this year. This new grant will take us into the next 3 years. And that grant will be, and I attached the spreadsheets for you for her. The problem with the Indigent Legal Services grant is Ms. Borkowski did not request to be in the retirement system, so we had extra money from her grant. So we can use that coming up. However, she is now required to take the personnel civil service exam. She is not considered exempt under the classifications, and therefore we don't have enough money to pay her in one grant. So this grant that I'm asking for will be part of her money. We'll take the money from this grant that we have that ending on May 31st and use that and then continue on. And the next OIL's grant that I will be requesting will be the rest of the money to pay for her in the 3rd year, because OIL grants, Office of Indigent Legal Services grants, are for 3 years. So that's the reason for this grant and what's in it. So I would respectfully request that you allow our office and the Legal Aid Society and the Assigned Counsel Office to apply for Grant 6 from Office of Indigent Legal Services.
All right, do we
That's
have
clear as mud.
All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Sieber, second by Supervisor Frazier. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Okay.
opposed? All right.
My third item is a request to go into executive session for hiring and personnel matters.
All right. So let's get the wording right. We're going to need a motion to go into executive session for matters relating to the appointment of a particular individual.
Yes.
Do we have a motion? Supervisor Gerard, seconded by Supervisor Dickinson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're going into executive.
Sorry.
back in session. No action was taken in executive session. And now I'd like to ask the committee for a resolution to increase the salary of the first assistant public defender to $81,000. Motion by Supervisor Gerard, second by Supervisor Bramer. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Marcy, you had one more thing?
Yes, one other thing I need to advise you of. The indigent parolee program through New York State. The state was funding some of it from 2015 to 2016 fiscal year. They have removed all the funding for the next year, 2016 to 2017. We have been submitting vouchers, and eventually we're hoping that the state will get a percentage of the the county will get a percentage of the vouchers that we submit to the state. We haven't seen any of that money yet. As soon as I see it, I will let you know. But they are not doing it for next year. And the other question I have for you, I would like to request that I can do a letter to submit to this committee to review to offices on behalf of this county to request that the indigent legal services funding be all state paid for and not from the county. There is legislation in terms of that in the legislature right now, and I would like to do a letter in support if that is acceptable to the committee for you to review and then decide if you want to send on.
How much money was this last year?
In terms of what we got in grants, each grant is separate and distinct per year. Most of our salary from the public defender's office, I would say 80% of it is not state funded. So it's a large
So I
number.
mean, you say they're not gonna fund it anymore, so what would we do?
Oh, no, okay, you're talking about the parolee piece.
Yeah.
The parolee piece, they didn't pay for it they paid for it up to 2008 and 9, then they stopped. They just started for this last fiscal year, which we're in the middle of. So I don't know how much they're gonna give us. They had allotted $60,000, $600,000 for the entire state. So each county would get a percentage. And I don't know how much that will be depending on how much indigent parolee vouchers go in from the whole state. So I can't give you an answer on that. Okay?
All right, anything else for Marcy this morning?
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, emergency services is next.
Wait yourself.
Thank you.
Holy crap.
I'm ready whenever you are, Brian.
Ready? Thank you, Supervisor Wood. The first item that we have is a request to extend our contract with the City of Glens Falls Fire Department for our cause and origin investigation. They do those services for us, and we pay them per the dollar amount that they need to backfill those positions when they're doing that job.
All right, motion by Supervisor Gerard, second by Supervisor Brock. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
Number 2 is a resolution to request to fill the position of building maintenance helper due to the creation that we did during our budget process. This is going to be a part-time person, $5,000 a year, $2,500 paid by Warren County, $2,500 paid by Washington County. Both of our offices have included that money in our 2016 budget. We would like to move ahead and fill that position.
Motion by Supervisor Montesi, seconded by Supervisor Frazier. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That one carries.
Item 3 is a travel request for myself and Amy to the NYSEMA, New York State Emergency Management Association Conference in Syracuse.
We have a motion by Supervisor Vanslo, seconded by Supervisor Bramer. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
Number 4 is a travel request for myself and Deputy Coordinator Combs to attend the County Fire Coordinator Conference in Montour Falls at the Fire Academy.
A motion by Supervisor Gerard, seconded by Supervisor Frazier. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
Number 5, to amend the 2016 budget for the FY 2014 SHSP, basically removing money from 15 to 16, the money that's left over.
Okay, we have a motion, Supervisor Montesi, second by Supervisor Brock. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
Hard to believe you had anything left over there, Brian.
We're very cautious on how we spend our money around. All right, number 6, same thing, we're moving money from the FY14 hazmat grant into 2016. That's, $54,000 left in that one.
Motion by Supervisor Montesi, seconded by Supervisor Vanslo. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That one carries.
Number 7, same thing, we're moving what's left in the FY15 Homeland Security grant into 2016.
Okay, we have a motion. Supervisor Frazier, Supervisor Seaver. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
Number 8, the same thing, we're moving money from the, HMEP grant into 2016, leftover from 2015.
We have a motion. Supervisor McDonald, you have a second? Supervisor Seaver, and then you have a question.
Yes, please.
Brian, all of this, what about matching money? I mean, do you need
None of our grants have match with the exception of, the LEMPG.
Okay, so we're good with that?
Number 8.
Number eight has a match as well.
But you have that allocated for, do you need to transfer that over from your county budget to next year, or you're all set?
No, the number eight, we use, volunteer hours and
Okay,
other
got it.
aids, and that's the one that covers 7 counties.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That one carries.
Number 9, requesting permission to apply for the FY16 LEMPG grant. You don't know exactly how much it is, it's generally around $30,000, and this is a 50-50 grant. But we cover we use in-kind services, we don't use money.
Do we have a motion? Supervisor Seaver, seconded by Supervisor Gerard. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That one carries.
Number 10, request for our EMS coordinator and deputy EMS coordinator to attend the conference in Baltimore. All we're paying for is the registration fee for each person, which is $250, which is in the EMS budget.
Okay, do we have a motion? Supervisor Simpson, second. Supervisor Bramer. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
The last item we have is a pending one left over as far as the discussion on the OES storage building. I know that at the last meeting Supervisor Seaver wanted to know where we stood with that. We did expend dollars per this committee's request with the Clark Patterson, the architect for the county, and they were given dollars to look at this project and to determine what they felt this project was going to cost. I will pass these out, and if you would pass those out. There's only enough for the committee. You'll see there's 2 sets of columns on this paper. The first column on the left is the one they gave me initially, which showed this project at $781,000. At which point I said, I can't even take that to the committee. I said, I won't even carry it upstairs.
Wow.
I met with the engineer again. We went through all the numbers, and if you look on the right-hand side of the column, you'll see those in red. That's what we came up with the second version. That's $268,000. A little difference there. We still have the issue of, no matter how much this building costs, we gotta know where we're gonna put it. And somewhere along the way, somebody needs to decide where we're gonna put it. And between Mr. Tennyson and whoever, this group, we're still at a standstill, what we can do. I would like to offer you this. I'm going to hand these out. This is a picture of almost identical building that Franklin County, my counterpart in Franklin County, just put up. You'll take a look at it. It's slightly smaller than the one I've described, but almost identical. This is a package building like I want to put up. You can see the way it's set up. I apologize, I'm talking to people who don't have a picture yet.
I'm really getting good at hitting the speakers. Brian, do you have like 3 more?
I'm sorry, I don't have any more.
That's okay.
I can-
You guys can
I can send
share
them
it.
out.
I've seen it, so go ahead and share that amongst yourselves.
I forgot we were at 11 now. Oh, you can give them this one. There's one more.
Overhead projector.
If you look at that picture and then you look at the page behind it, which is an email I received from my counterpart Ricky Provost up in Franklin County, they built this building almost identical to what I want. They built it for $70,000. What's the difference?
Will they come down and do ours?
They probably would, Ron.
Didn't we
Uh,
start at that number? I'm sorry, I'm jumping, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, initially, you know, the kit that I looked at, that I got a price on, was $62,000. Obviously, you have to assemble it. Obviously, you have to put concrete or stone. This whole project started out as a carport. And as you can see, we went from a carport to $780,000, which is not where we want to be, obviously. I need to get the equipment under cover. I will tell you this, and I didn't make this up, this just happened. We have sitting in our office right now 3 auditors from the New York State Grants Department. They have been here since last Tuesday, and they'll probably be here 3 or 4 more days this week. They are looking at everything that OES has bought in our grants since 2011. Every piece of paper, every packing list, every receipt, every check, every canceled check. Now, when I took them out back to where our equipment is, where I had to show them each piece of equipment, serial number, had to have a sign on the back that said purchased with funds by U.S. Homeland Security. You know what they said to me when I was walking across the parking lot? You can't have this stuff outside. I'm like, well, she says, it's not undercover. I said, I know, there's ice around it and the snow's piled up against it. What am I gonna say? You know, the stuff needs a little bit of care. It needs to be undercover. So I've said that for 4 years now, going on 5. I would like this county and this committee to consider doing something to move this project forward.
Supervisor Simpson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairwoman. On this building, Brian, there's no insulation in this?
Nope.
Anything electrical?
Nope. Electrical, yes, I'm sorry. It's got electric garage door. That price included doors, electric operators, all that.
Okay.
The difference is that was constructed by their buildings and grounds, their DPW people.
So, I mean, would this building suffice? No heat? Or are you gonna need to
I haven't asked
insulate
for
it?
heat.
No, it hasn't.
Okay.
We never
I
asked
just wanted
for
to,
heat.
I'm just looking at the difference
No.
in prices and.
The only difference would be if we want, my original design, which was copied by the engineer, by the way, that design included one of those bays would have minimal heat, 50 degrees, for our hazmat trailer. Right now, we pay for rental space to keep our hazmat trailer at the South Queensbury Fire Station, because we don't have a place to put it inside. So now, when there's an event, a hazmat incident, the firefighters have to drive from the Broad Street Fire Station over to South Queensbury, hook up the trailer, and then go to where they have to go. And it would be much easier to have all this equipment in one place so that we could get it there when we need it. But that's something, it's not a lot. We pay $200 a month from our friends at South Queensbury. But again, we're renting space. The equipment isn't somewhere where we can work on it easily, where we can, you know, maintain it and calibrate the meters and do all that. It's very difficult not to have our stuff in one place.
So your ideal building would be this and one bay heated?
One bay heated or one
Up to
bay
50?
separated where we could keep it at a minimum temperature. Again,
So you're gonna have to heat it, I mean,
well, there's an alternative. You can put heaters in the trailers, as long as the trailers are somewhere where there is a good power source.
insulation plugged in.
You know, the price that I gave you for that package for $62,000 included 6 inches of insulation, all the doors, everything. I'm having trouble understanding, and I understand we have to use prevailing wage. I understand that. I know that it costs money to put a building up. I'm not foolish, I know all that. So if we were to say $150,000 may be the mark where we're at. I still would like to see if there isn't some way that we can push this along so that whether it's facilities or whoever it is, we can actually look for a place to put this building and see if we can't make this happen.
Brian, have you given some alternative places to put it? I mean, you know, what are we talking about?
We have been looking for 3 years.
On
3 years.
site?
We've
Oh,
had
no,
it,
there's nothing on site, there's nothing in,
Where is the equipment right now?
it's outside in the parking lot.
if you go down here at the end and you're coming on the turn by the compactor, you'll see all the equipment is parked there. We did have some discussion last fall, I think it was, about whether to put something here, put something out there, or put something across by the salt storage, over by the old detention home across the road. We've had some discussions back and forth. I'm assuming, Brian, that, you haven't heard any more from DPW or anything regarding siting.
No,
Okay.
I had the meeting with the engineer, like I said, where we went from 780 down to 260, and, Mr. Tennyson didn't, come to that meeting. So,
Okay.
again, I'm at a point where I think you can see my frustration level. It's been a long time, and I understand money. Don't tell me I don't understand. I mean, I understand the dollars. I'm a taxpayer. I pay for 4 houses in Warren County. I have some rental units. I pay a lot of taxes in Warren County. So, it's not that I don't understand the money.
Supervisor Frazier, did you have something?
Well, I'm frustrated too, because as long as I've been on this board, this has been a discussion. We put it off every year. You know what was strange? Here's a billing for $75,000, but yet we came up with $80,000 for SPCA with this. I feel like this should have come first, and yet here's poor Brian still sitting here begging us, please do something. It just seems like it is time that we did something. We find money for everything else, and yet something that's really important, he's being told this stuff should be undercover. Then why aren't we doing something? Why aren't we moving forward with it?
Supervisor Brock?
Yeah, we've gone through this before, and the hang-up isn't this committee, it's when it gets to
Someplace
the
else.
others. I mean, you're sort of selling, you're preaching to the choir, I think, here, but should we just move it on and?
I guess my
gotta sell it to the-
request, and thank you Supervisor Brock, I appreciate that. My request then would be, can we get a formal, request from this committee to move this on?
All right, what we could do perhaps today, the committee definitely has changed, there's 11 of us here now, or half the board for heaven's sake. Why don't we try to send a resolution from our committee on to finance, because we will need a designated source of funding. With those of us who are on the finance, higher education, committee, let's bear this in mind, and let's have a resolution to say that we really wanna see this constructed this year, and we would appreciate a source of funding designated and forwarded on. Can I get a motion for that? Supervisor Simpson, Supervisor Montesi?
Can we say, you know, Brian said 75,000 was what these folks built it. If we go to prevailing rate, add another 30. So Brian said 150,000 may get us this kind of a building. Can we at least use that number when we?
Well, and again, it all depends on who you talk to. You talk to the engineers, they were talking sprinkler system and all kinds of HVAC and stuff. Obviously, that's how you get to 780,000. When you bring it down to a building where you can keep the stuff from having snow piled on it, you can close the door and you don't have to worry about the equipment getting touched, security, all those kinds of things. That's what I'm looking for. If you wanna build a building without insulation, and I'll come to you in 2 years and say, geez, I'd really like to insulate that,
Well, I mean, I think
we can do that, or we can do it all at once,
we
you
can
know?
insulate that one bay that you wanna put the trailer in.
But like I say, the kit, 62,000 includes 6-inch insulation walls and ceiling,
I
or
think we
walls
need
and roof.
to remember too, we're probably gonna have to go out for quotes. You know, we
No
have our
question.
procurement policy,
No
so certainly it's gonna be a little bit early to know exactly. It's also gonna depend on what we can do with our own forces. Brian, do you know if the concrete for the flooring, in the picture, it looks like that's concrete floored. I know at one point you were talking gravel.
Well, the concrete in that $70,000 building right there, that includes the concrete.
That includes concrete,
It's
okay.
on a floating slab. If you look at the email behind it, you'll see it describes how it was built.
Supervisor
Well,
Seaver?
I'm only asking for a dollar number, good, bad, or indifferent, so that finance can say yes or no.
We could say perhaps not to exceed 150,000, is that,
That fair?
That's a good start, like I say, and I'll say this again. Every time this committee has asked me for a price over the last 4 years, I can do that with the exception of site work. Until we know where we're gonna put it. If we can put it out here where Mr. Tennyson suggested it, in this piece of grass out here, site work costs nothing, it's grass. All we gotta do is put in the concrete. if we're gonna build it over there where we have to replace the salt shed, build a salt shed somewhere else, I mean, there's all these different things. I suggest put it where the old Westmount was, but I guess that property's being used for something else, so.
Yep. Supervisor Seaver, did you have a?
Just two issues with that going on. One, it would be great if facilities could come up with a, suggestion on where that should go, working with Jeff and Brian prior to going to finance. I think we're gonna get stuck on that issue. We've sent it on to finance before, they've sent it back to us. You know, the one thing that we did, and I think at that time, a few of us had objected to it, was going out for, I think it was $6,000 for this $700,000 quote. I just wanna make sure, I'm assuming that money has now been expended, but could we end that contract or agreement?
It's done.
It's done.
Done and paid for.
I don't wanna go back out and pay for anybody else to give us another
I don't believe that's
number.
what anybody's suggesting here.
Okay, I just wanna make sure that's on the record, 'cause last time we got to finance and that's what happened.
Yep.
But I think we need to be
Supervisor
clear about
Bramer?
that.
Is the site location gonna come back to us? 'Cause I would like to know, have an idea before we start spending $150,000.
Certainly the site would come back to us, but most of us will facilities meets tomorrow? Is that right, Dan? Are we tomorrow?
Yeah.
Facilities meeting tomorrow, so certainly, you know, there may be some discussion then. Many of us will sit on multiple committees, and then there'll be discussion again in finance, and then be discussion again at the board meeting, so I'm pretty sure we'll find out where it's gonna be.
I know it's a problem, you know, Supervisor Dickinson was, you know, brought up at the last time we brought this, he didn't want it on site. I understand that. You don't have to put it here. We're talking about a building that would look identical to the Buildings and Grounds building, which sits right there. But if you don't want it here,
Brian, can
Okay.
you get on the agenda tomorrow for, county facility? I mean, we should, it's not on the, it's not on there, but.
yeah, I'll have to look. Again, I have 3 auditors sitting in my office. I don't like to leave them alone. No, I'm only
Well, Brian, bring them all over, I'm sure they'll be glad to see we're addressing the issue they have a concern with.
Yeah.
I think it would be important too to ask the chair of county facilities whether or not he'd let it come on his agenda.
Right.
Tomorrow,
I would say just bring it back up again, Dan, and ask Frank and
tomorrow we
Jeff
have-
to have a look.
we have Clark Patterson there to go over the $16 million project.
Mhm.
And as far as the other stuff on the, I don't mind putting it on the agenda if we have time to do it.
I don't think we need to have an in-depth discussion, but maybe ask Jeff to come back to us with some, like 1 or 2 recommendations for the committee to review,
I think Jeff is first gonna comment on this.
probably.
He has all that.
Yeah, but he hasn't commented on it.
Why don't you just add it into the 16?
I don't think they'll let us do that, Jim.
Again, I have no desire to, step on toes or get people upset, but I would like to consider trying to move this project on.
All right, well, we have a motion and a second on the floor right now. Those who made and seconded the motions, are you all right with amending to put a not to exceed 150,000?
Yes.
All right, let's refer that on to finance and we'll see how, you know, if we can get that passed, and we'll see how tomorrow goes. All those in favor of referring it on to finance?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, and then we will see how tomorrow goes for county facilities. If we can't get it in this month, hopefully we can get it in next.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Ron, I think you're right, have the guys from Boston come.
Thought that'd be a great way to get it done, wouldn't it? Can't put it off for too long.
He has hung in there.
How you doing?
Well, it's important to keep that stuff under cover. The longer it sits out, the quicker it'll go.
Put it off, put it off.
And I don't
Oh,
Yeah, we found money for the dogs, I mean, come on. We could put the dog in the building.
There's a whole lot to do.
Oh, because it's too far away, isn't it, that his thing?
Yes, if you wanna walk out of the office.
Yeah, go there, yeah.
Yeah, I thought my idea was good, to add that into the.
Morning. Good morning.
I'll put you right in charge of that.
Man, everybody's got a lot on their things today. Man, we aren't even halfway there, are we?
I don't think so, I looked at it before I came. Waiting for my nap.
We're-
Why don't you put the taking the jail down there, but, yeah. They wanna do the front.
Right,
entrance.
and we'll start now with the sheriff's agenda.
Good morning. I've got an extensive list this morning, I'll try and get through it. Under the action agenda, item A is request a resolution to move $2,154 from fiscal year 2015 to 2016. This money amounts to donations from the public specifically made to canine care and equipment.
I'll move that, Mr. Chairman.
All right, moved by Supervisor Montesi, seconded by Supervisor Dickinson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one carries.
Item B, request a resolution to move $20,000 from the 2014 SLETPP grant from fiscal year 2015 to 2016. It's for law enforcement and other equipment.
Okay, we have a motion, Supervisor Frazier, seconded by Supervisor Dickinson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That carries.
Item C, request a resolution to move $293,952.13, interfund transfers. This is for the radio system capital project that we're working on.
Okay, do we have a motion? Supervisor Gerard, seconded by Supervisor McDonald. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
Could I ask a belated question,
Sure.
Mr. Chairwoman? Is that half of the 500,000 that we were talking about before to upgrade radios?
I believe we were initially awarded $598,000. That is unspent monies thus far that's being carried over to this year's budget.
Thank you.
Is that just the minutia of trying to get the bid out?
There's several hurdles we've run into. One is the Adirondack Park Agency. The tower that we would like to erect up on Maggie's Road in the town of Warrensburg falls within the Adirondack Park Agency's jurisdiction. We worked diligently with former county attorney Martin Operative. We filed an application with the APA, supplied all the information they needed. We hired a Chazon engineering group. They come in and did a view shed analysis for us, which was part of what was needed for the application to the APA. We recently received a response from the APA. Basically, they had more questions about the project. So we're working with our radio person, Mark Neal, and Amy Bartlett in the county attorney's office to address their questions and get them moving forward.
Okay. Any other questions on that? And moving along then to D.
Item D, request a resolution to transfer $756 from contingency funds to purchase equipment and supplies to comply with a safety exposure plan.
Motion by Supervisor Gerard.
Get it on the floor.
Get it on the floor. Do we have a second? Supervisor Dickinson? You have a question, Supervisor Gerard?
Just in the amount of the sheriff's budget, we can't find $756,000 without going to contingent?
The recommendation I received via email from Mr. Dusick was that we should get the money out of contingency fund. It's something Amy Clute has been working on for quite some time.
That's correct.
If that's the new standard, when we come to other committees and other departments, and we ask if they can find monies that wasn't appropriated, that holds water for those also. Because our standard is to find it in your budget, my last 10 years, especially the $756.
Supervisor Sieber?
I agree with Supervisor Gerard. We're in month one. You know, if we're gonna start pulling from contingency before asking departments to find it within their budget, or if it's something from Amy's budget, I don't know how that works, but, I don't see any documents, or I don't really understand what it's for, but for $756, I would support Supervisor Gerard.
If they're not really sure what it is, somebody wanna, I don't know whether Amy or Sean, somebody wanna explain a little bit more about what it is? For the
Amy,
committee?
you wanna explain?
The Sheriff's Department has a need for a bloodborne pathogens plan. They have an exposure, and the Needham Group wrote that plan, and there's supplies required to go in each car. A lot of the supplies, the Undersheriff and Office for Emergency Services were able to locate within some emergency services stock. There was and I don't recall Sean wasn't prepared to talk about what the 750, but it was a few of the supplies that go in each car.
That's correct.
To help if an officer is exposed to bloodborne pathogens out on the road, then they will follow the protocols using these supplies to limit their exposure. So that's what the 750 was.
If it's helpful, I can certainly list for you what these supplies are that, it was indicated were falling short.
I don't think that's
Okay.
the problem at all. It's a budget issue. I'm certain that it's needed, and I would only say that I can see difficulties presenting itself. We had issues over there with a hot water tank. We had some maintenance things that we had to take out of contingent last year. We asked if you're looking at that, because facilities generally doesn't really come into play over there as far as the maintenance and upkeep over there. It's a newer building, but now after the 12 years, it's getting to the point where things need to be replaced and looked at. And you said you would look at that and put monies in the budget this year to do preventive maintenance or maintenance that's just general needed.
Which we did do.
So I just assume that that's just good budgeting, and then I see this here in bloodborne pathogens. My experience in the fire department, 26 years, I've been around a long time. We budgeted every year for it. I can't believe that officers, that we wouldn't have $756 in the budget for the sheriff's department. That's just budgeting and looking at what you contend with and how you submit your budgets. It doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence moving forward.
Supervisor Seaver.
And just to add to that point, I think, back in November or December, we were talking with the Board of Elections, and they were saying they needed to do POs, and that they couldn't do those because their budgets were cut short. And we assured them that, don't worry, if you get to the end of the year and you're short, we're gonna cover it out of contingency. But I'm just wondering, is there a way to just pay for it out of your budget? And then if you're short at the end of the year and it's something because this is obviously needed, I thought our standard was use your budget before you need to come to contingency. Paul, did that change? I mean, if you recommended that he do this, you'll follow the sheriff's office. I'm just wondering, is this a new procedure or an exception to the rule?
My understanding's always been that you use your budget if you can. My understanding from the sheriff's office is they didn't have this money in the budget. If you don't, then my recommendation is you do go to contingency, because the last thing you want to do is allow all these departments to spend money using their budget and then saying we'll catch you up at the end of the year, and then at the end of the year your contingency fund's gone, the budgets are over, and now you've got a really bad situation where you don't have enough money and you're dipping into your fund balance. So I think it's better if the department truly doesn't have the money to pay for it up front, because then you see your contingency balance every month diminishing, and then as a board that you got a financial problem going on. If you do it the other way and allow departments just to cover it, knowing they're going to come back in at the end of the year, personally, I think you're making a financial mistake that will come back and bite you at the end of the year.
I'm just looking for a clear-cut policy, because I know with some
I don't think it's clear-cut, Rachel. I think it really depends on the situation. Now, when we did the budget, my impression is that this is a newer thing that this was not something that was around during budget time.
This was not addressed during the budget time. I don't think it had been finalized at that point.
Right.
Then when Sergeant Gerard, Lieutenant Corsones come to me and say, this is the type of equipment that we are now being mandated to have for the officers. I know there was an email correspondence going back and forth with Amy Flute, the county administrator, as far as who's going to pay for that.
Exactly.
If it's the committee's feeling that the sheriff's office should find us within our funds, we can certainly do that. I was following the direction of the county administrator.
What is the sense of the committee then? Would you like them to try to find it from within their own funds, or would you like to authorize the 756 out of contingency?
I'm thinking if they didn't know this at budget time, that it's okay to bring it out of
contingency. Okay. Any other thoughts?
This is a $2 million budget.
Yeah.
I mean, $700, come on.
750.
Supervisor Gerard?
I know there's parameters also. Out of certain line items, you only can shift fundings appropriately, but, we're consistently at the end of the year balancing overtime, shifting monies out of one account to another. I mean, that's just generic. We do that all the time to balance the budget before the end of the year. That we do that in January, December, but I'm not comfortable with, January, $756, on a $2 million budget.
Did I hear you said you could go back and look through the budget?
I'm sure we
Did
can
you say
find the
that?
money someplace at this point in time, it's just, it was an unplanned expense. It came in well after the budget had been finalized.
Well, it sounds reasonable that you can just go back, look at the budget, and then come back at a later time. It's not there.
I agree.
All right, so the sense of the committee is that, if I'm getting this correct, to have the department go back and see if they can do it through interfund transfers within the department, and if not, the end of the year, we'll try to take some out of contingency to cover it. Does that seem to be the sense of the committee? All right, why don't we do that, Sean, and then we'll move on to E.
Do we need to table that? There was a motion and a second was on the
We can
floor.
table it if you'd like, as a...
I'll table it.
All right, motion to table, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Item E is request a resolution to reclassify a position, seeking to eliminate the civil law enforcement officer number 1. Create a patrol officer position. The increase to the budget is $4,016. We do have the money within our budget to cover this additional expense. To further explain what we're doing, the Sergeant Kevin Sellen, who's been the sergeant of our civil unit, he's been in that position since I believe about 1990. He's retiring at the end of this month, actually the end of this week. We're going to provisionally promote Bill Gerard, who's been in that civil unit, has been with the county for I believe 37 years. Something that we had a lot of discussion about within our administration is we want to backfill that civil officer position with a police officer, put a patrol officer in that position, and have him go out and do the civil work. We're one of probably a handful, maybe 6 counties within a state that currently do business the way we do business. Most agencies have a police officer over in the civil office out doing the civil functions. The benefit to us by going back to doing that, it allows the sheriff the versatility to take that, put whoever he needs over there, much like we do when we assign people to our narcotics enforcement unit, or some of our other special details. It also gives us the ability to take that person, use them at special events, use them up at the Americade, the car show, the balloon festival, wherever you need them. He's also eligible to work overtime. The 3 members, the sergeant and the 2 civil officers as they currently exist within our civil unit, they work Monday through Friday, weekends, holidays off. All they do is serve papers. We have no ability to take them out of that office and use them in other capacities as a patrol officer or as a law enforcement officer.
I'll move it, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Supervisor Montesi, seconded by Supervisor Simpson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Item F, request permission to send Communication Officer Priest, Communication Officer Harrington to emergency medical dispatch training in Fort Edward. The cost is $790, and that's covered within our budget.
Okay, do we have a motion? Supervisor Vanslo, second by Supervisor Dickinson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
Item G, request permission to send Patrol Officer Lopez, Patrol Officer Geiser to Human Factors and Traffic Crash Reconstruction in Albany, New York. The cost is $1,650. That money is within our budget.
Motion by Supervisor Gerard, seconded by Supervisor Montesi. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
Item H, request permission to send Patrol Officer Glenn and Patrol Officer Courtney House to property and evidence room management training in Rochester, New York. The training was free, but the cost for the room was $460.56.
Do we have a motion? Supervisor Frazier, seconded by Supervisor Montesi. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
Is that one room?
2 rooms. Item I, request permission to send Major LaFar, Patrol Officer John House, and Senior Accountant Jennifer Smith to Phase 1 and Phase 2 Basic Civil School in Albany, New York. The cost is $1,200, and we can cover that with our budget.
Do we have a motion? Supervisor Brammer, seconded by Supervisor Vanslo. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That one carries.
Under topics for discussion, item A is the filling of a patrol officer position due to a promotion. Savings to the budget is $14,623. Item B, filling a patrol sergeant position due to promotion, impact is budget neutral. Item C, filling of an investigator position due to a resignation, increase to the budget by $4,587. The reason there's an increase, if you don't know, Kevin Canine recently left us, went to the FBI. The person that's taking his position was on a higher step, which is Terry Jeffers, and that's why there's an increase to the budget. She's been with us for longer. Filling of a civil sergeant position due to a retirement, the impact is budget neutral. Item E, filling of a senior account clerk position due to retirement. The savings to the budget is $7,946.91. Item F, filling of 5 correction officer positions due to 3 resignations and 2 promotions. The savings to the budget is $49,692.30. Item G, filling of 2 correction sergeant positions due to 1 new staffing position and 1 resignation. The impact is budget neutral. And the only other item I had on the agenda is, I was asked to allocate time for discussion of Glens Falls Police House.
Yes, thank you. And we're welcoming the sheriff who's here this morning, so he can discuss with us a little bit.
You have a copy, right?
I do have a copy, Sheriff, yes. Yep.
This unusual, Sean, you have 3 resignations as correction officers and 1, the way I'm reading it, 1 sergeant resigned also?
Captain?
Mike, you wanna cover that? Question was, is that unusual?
Not necessarily.
This is the first I've
reporting
seen.
period for this committee is a little bit extended. In 2015, your date was closer towards the beginning of the month, now it's towards the end of the month. So this encompasses almost a 2-month period of time. The resolution for the sergeant's position,
For the captain's position, is that what you said?
yeah, first license.
I had
Supervisor Gerard, we didn't have a committee meeting right now, so there's 2 months worth of business consolidating today.
Can I stand here?
Yes.
I was asked last week, by the chairwoman. She said she had a meeting last week with the mayor, I think the county, administrator, the chairman, about consolidation. And I guess she wanted a copy of the DCGS study, which I think you've gotten,
Yes, we had that sent to the entire committee.
and asked if we had done a cost analysis, and we didn't at the time. We just gave you a position number of how many we thought it would take us to take over the city of Glens Falls. So what I've done, I've provided you that with current costs. A few remarks. I wasn't at that meeting. I assume it was the mayor and you 3 folks. I guess we'll do anything you ask us to do. We'll give you numbers, we'll figure out, but I think it's a little premature. I guess my question to you, Chairwoman, is has the Glens Falls Common Council voted on this? Is that something they want to do?
It is my understanding that the Glens Falls Common Council has not taken a position, that this is from the mayor himself, not from the Common Council.
Because there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work that has to be done in this, and I think I mentioned it in 2013. There's things that are problematic that has to be done prior to this board making any type of decision, and I don't know if the city has done that yet. I think you also got a letter from the Glens Falls PBA that was against it, and I think that's one of the problematic things. I checked with our attorneys at the New York State Sheriff's Association. Labor issues is a huge issue. For a city labor force to consolidate into a county labor force, something that can be done, but certainly that's something that has to be looked into before we even get to voting at the county level. I think the union has a standing and that they could bring a complaint before PERB, as I understand it, if it's not something that the city
and everybody votes on. So, to me, I wanna warn this board, we can do it, but I think the city needs to let us know what their intentions are. So far, all I've seen in the paper is that the mayor wants to do this, and that's fine, but I think the whole common council has to vote on it.
Supervisor Brock?
Yeah, I've talked to 4 members of the council, and one of them, I don't remember, Jim Clark, did he say anything? Well, anyway, 3 of them said they wanted, to see the cost first before they decided.
And that's where Jim stands on that.
Jim, okay, so all 4 then said they wanted, I haven't talked to all 6, but 4 of them said they wanted to see the cost first before they decided on the vote.
Chairman?
Well, I think it's important to note that we can give you a cost, as I told you 3 years ago. We can give you a cost for the 23 positions, which I have done here. But we haven't figured in gas, we haven't figured in uniforms, we haven't figured in a lot of things. Also, which has not been figured in, is there has to be some sort of consolidation study. You have to find out what the legacy costs are gonna be, what the retirement costs are gonna be. The Glens Falls PVA retirement is different from the county, so who's gonna bore that expense? I can't answer those. As the sheriff, I'll do whatever you ask, but I can't give you those. That has to be studied.
Chairman Garrity, I think you...
Yeah, it's my understanding, Bud, that letter was sent to us in October, with his number on it, was it October?
I believe so.
Okay. All he wanted from the committee was, do we accept his number or don't accept his number? And it's pretty obvious, based on your information, the committee wouldn't accept that number. You send it back to him, and that's all he's looking for. That's my understanding of the way we left the meeting. Is that correct, or? Is that correct?
That's fair. I think there was some confusion on both sides as to exactly what one side and the other side was looking for, as a result of that meeting. But I do believe that the sheriff is correct on certain items. If you guys have had a chance to read the study, there is a retirement plan that Glens Falls officers are currently entitled to, that if we were to take them on, is going to come to the county, and it will entitle all of our county employees to. So that, I believe in the study, they said about $82,000 increase to Warren County right there. And the sheriff is correct. He's supplied numbers here, but one of the things we do not know is the seniority of the officers in Glens Falls. And also, it's very important to remember that if you're combining 2 unions, if we even could do that, the negotiations that would go on there, these numbers may not necessarily stay. They could come in at higher levels depending on the steps. Supervisor Montesi?
Just as an overall, I appreciate the work you've done already, Sheriff, but anytime a consolidation happens, somebody has to save some money. I mean, it's gotta work that way. And if the cost is gonna be $2.4 million to the county, and the city, if the number that they gave, $1.3 million, where does that other $1 million come from? I mean, that's my concern, is it gonna cost the county $1 million for this consolidation or not?
Well, simple math. Right now, if you were to automatically say, yeah, let's do this, that's what your costs are gonna be. And I would assume if the city paid you $1.3 million and it's costing you $2.4 million, the taxpayers across the whole state, not just the city of Glens Falls, is gonna have to bear that.
Well, the county, I mean.
Everybody in the county.
Yeah.
Taxpayers, that's correct.
Supervisor
So, I
Seaver?
mean, the big question is, before we get too involved in all of the details, is do we really wanna look at a $1 million expense? Is that true? That's the way I understood it.
Well, and I think that's even premature, Mr. Conover.
No,
I think
that's
that's
Mr.
way
Montesi.
premature, I'm sorry, Ron.
We got so many on committee.
Conover. I think that's way premature because we need to just find out from the Glens Falls Common Council, not just the mayor, do you wanna do this? And the people of the city of Glens Falls has a right to determine whether they want a police department or they don't. It's not just one person, it's the Common Council who represents the people. I have not seen that anywhere. All I have seen is that the mayor wants it, and that's fine. If the mayor wants it, I think he has to sell it to his common council before we even spend a lot of time up here doing it.
Supervisor Seaver?
And, you know, Sheriff York, you bring up an important point, and I don't see the mayor here, but I do see the Post-Star, and I read in the Post-Star that the mayor said, that it's something that doesn't have to go to a referendum. And in talking with other supervisors, and I don't know whether that's correct or not, in talking to other supervisors, what I hear is, does the city of Glens Falls want this? But what I also hear is, do the residents of Horicon want it? Queensberry, Hague, Thurman, you know, where this cost is going to be spread throughout the entire county, as you pointed out. And I guess I'm really interested in to know what the public thinks of it, and where our constituents stand on it. And just looking at the numbers alone, I mean, that's a tough sell.
Yeah, but again, Rachel, why even get to that point? The Glens Falls Common Council hasn't voted on this issue yet. Why should we even ask somebody from Thurman or Horicon or Stony Creek whether they want to pay for this? They may want to, but we aren't there yet. They have to make a determination in the city of Glens Falls that their residents want to consolidate or they want to keep their PD. They have a right to vote on that as the people of Glens Falls. And again, it can't come from one person. It has to come from the Common Council who represents everybody. I'm not seeing that. I didn't see it in the Post-Star. I didn't see that the Common Council had voted on this and this is what they want. If they vote on this and this is what they want, you folks got to start having a conversation with your constituents. And you need to ask me to get more information, which I will. But I think I've told you 3 years ago, I gave you a copy of a report that was done in the city of Jamestown was going to consolidate with Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office. That's 8 years running. And they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars for a consolidation study. That study is done, and they still haven't made a decision yet. So I don't think that you can automatically say, all right, next January we're going to consolidate. Even if you both wanted to. There's a lot of numbers you got to put into it. Everybody wants to understand what the numbers are. You will not understand the numbers until you do the study, and it's a long process. I said that 3 years ago. I'll say it again today, and I'd like to say for the record, I don't mind doing it, but Glens Falls has to make the decision first. They need to go to their people. Their people need to decide whether they want their police department, whether they don't want their police department. Then we can consider it.
Supervisor
I think
Brown?
that's important.
I know that I think the letter itself says that the mayor, sent the proposal out with the concurrence of the Common Council. And I know he's discussed it with them, so it's not like the mayor is just going rogue on this. So
Well, I'm not saying he is, Jim. I'm just saying that there's no
I don't want
resolution.
the impression to be, but at the same time, it's kinda hard to make a decision without a general idea of what the cost will be. I know that, like you have the cost of uniforms, weapons, and vehicles. I believe the cost of that, not the overtime, is about $400,000. I may be wrong, I'm just coming from my memory. But I think before we get down to, in order for the Common Council to make a decision, they need to at least have an idea of what the costs are. I mean, it doesn't have to be super exact, but I mean, like, for example, you have 2.49. If we could get what the rest of it is, roughly, what it might be, maybe, then the Common Council could then say, yeah, we're interested in it, or we're not interested in it. I mean, it's kinda hard to just sort of,
I guess, Jim, what other numbers do you want from me? I still guess, I don't understand.
you've got the 2.49 for the salaries and benefits. And then you said, uniforms, weapons, fuel, all that sort of thing, that's maybe 400,000. And then, overtime and insurance, I mean, that's, again, I mean, if we could come up roughly with that, then all I'm trying to do is help the Common Council. If they're gonna make a decision, they need to have some kind of idea of what they're deciding on.
All
And I
right.
know they said that the cost, they needed to have the cost before they made the decision.
first,
But what I'm saying is, that's not the whole cost. I could give you a guesstimate, I give you a guesstimate instead of 2.4 million, let's make it 3.1 million. That should get you, insurances, that should get you maybe a little overtime, close, you know, and everything is a guesstimate when you're doing budgets, so you put
Right.
that at 3.1 million. But that still does not get you all the costs that you need to make a learned decision. You still have to know what those legacy costs are. You still have to know what the retirement costs are. You still have to find out, you know, retirement from the Glens Falls PBA to the Warren County PBA, and whether the PBA will try to block that. I don't know what those costs are, because that will include an attorney's fees as well to fight it.
Right.
And I think the PBA is gonna fight it, so there's more money you gotta figure in. I can't give you an accurate cost. I
Well,
can't
no.
do it.
All I'm saying is, all I'm looking at it is from the common council's point of view, which is they need to go on something, and they said they wanted to see the cost, so they need something. They can't just, you know, they set up a figure, and that's obviously too low.
actually, Jim, they didn't send the figure. The figure, according to the letter from the mayor, says, please be aware that this is my proposal acting as mayor of the city of Glens Falls, and with the authorization to make this proposal from the common council. But this proposal is contingent on acceptance and approval by the Glens Falls Common Council as well as the Warren County Board of Supervisors. So I see the sheriff's point, where we really can't consider it until they've approved it. But we'll just run along here. Supervisor Simpson, you've been waiting.
I was just gonna say, I think the sheriff is correct. I don't think we can do anything. I think we're spinning our wheels until there's a resolution from the common council. This isn't the Warren County proposal to Glens Falls. This is the mayor coming to the county. So I think we're looking at this in the wrong direction. I think
Right, well,
That is my point, and like I said, I'm more than willing to do whatever this board asks me to do. I think I've proven that in my first 8 years. We will do what we're asked to do, but I think we're getting the cart before the horse here. Glens Falls really needs to step up to see what they wanna do.
Supervisor Vansla?
I'm just wondering why this is all in your department to figure this out.
My question as well. Thank you.
And I don't wanna open another can of worms
Sure.
because my committee's adjourning in 5 minutes.
I know, we're trying to speed it along.
We all gotta take Marcy's, speed reading.
We do.
Speaking.
But I just want this board to know that I will do whatever you ask me to do. I agree with you, Ron. It shouldn't be all on, if Glens Falls really is looking this way, they need to do a lot more work. They've got a lot more work ahead of them that they have to do before work that we have to do. And I'm willing to do it.
I mean, we know that it's $4 million the cost to have police force in Glensville.
That's their budget for 2016, correct?
They're obviously, there's a savings to them. No matter what the costs end up, there should be a savings to them. And I guess my concern was, who's gonna pay for that savings? And that's part of the rub of the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think everybody pays for it.
One more time briefly, Supervisor Brock.
Yeah, I didn't mean to contradict you. I was just saying, I agree with you. The common council needs to, I don't think it's, that this committee should decide it, the common council should decide it. All I was saying is, before they decided, they said they needed the cost. So that was my point, not that you were wrong or anything.
No, I understand that.
I do believe we're putting the cart before the horse.
I just want you to understand that you could add maybe $1 million onto that. That's about as best I can do. I can't get into all that other
Right,
intricate
right.
stuff.
I'm
So, $3 million?
Okay.
All right, so what does the committee feel the next step should be? What would you like to see as our next step in this? Supervisor Dickinson?
I don't think we should do anything more until they come forward with a more concrete, consolidated proposal. I mean, they don't have any answers for us.
Okay.
And what little bit of information they gave us is horribly insufficient to do anything. I would not waste another second on it.
Supervisor Bramer?
Supervisor Dickinson, I appreciate that we, you know, as a city supervisor, perhaps the common council has some work to do, or the city council has some work to do. But I would like the committee at least to say that the council can go to the sheriff and ask for information or collaborate with him in any way that's reasonable, that's not asking him to do an entire consolidation study. If there's some way that we can get this additional cost information out of the sheriff's office, otherwise, how can we
The
do
issue
any
isn't that it
additional
isn't, we don't have it from the city, that's why it's not added there. the issue is not on the county's end. We've actually requested from the mayor for information and set up a way where we could access information. And certainly I'm absolutely certain that the city could get that information, any information from the sheriff's office at any time.
Yeah, I'm glad, Claudia, I'm glad to answer any of the common council if they wanna call me directly. My number's 222-2322. Really, I mean, Jim Brock is proof of that. He's called me a million times and I appreciate it, even when he was down in Glens Falls. So I do mean what I say. But I can't answer the question specifically. I mean, I wasn't even invited to this meeting. This meeting last week, it was just, the two chairmans and the county administrator. Nobody invited me to that, so.
Hold on, let's clarify that. All the mayor wants is an answer, whether you could do it for 5 years for that amount, 5 years for that amount, 5 years, and it's pretty obvious you can't, so I think all you do is give an answer, you can't do it, and it should put it to bed, unless he comes back with another proposal. That's all he's doing. That's what I would do, I'd send him a letter saying, we cannot do police consolidation for $1.3 million. Forget about all the other stuff, just tell him.
Supervisor Gerard, did you have something?
That might answer my question, but just listening to what the sheriff has to say, seeing the numbers, know what Glens Falls spends now on their police force. I think the question that's being raised here today, and probably should go on to Mr. Conover's finance committee, is, let's say that there was just a movement that the county takes it over and the city will pay 100% of that cost. Certainly that's not relevant, but breaking it down, would the county be willing to pay 95% of the cost, or 90%, or to tell the city they are responsible for 95 or 90? What would be the percentage that the county would actually want the city to pay of taking over their department? Because right now we're seeing that it's probably a couple million is where we're starting here from what the figures I see. And that's a percentage, that's like 50% of what the city's budget is now. And the city's offered 1.38 million.
Supervisor Conover?
Yeah, I really would recommend that everyone at least look at section 6 of the consolidation study. And especially focus on the table on page 34. Because I think when you do that, I think certain things become pretty apparent quickly. And that is that all of those scenarios in that table, and it's interesting, it's a good guesstimate, Sheriff, because they put an estimate before a lot of the other details of a 3.105 for the county. And they put in an estimates for the city, less the things we don't do, parking and everything else. And if you run that top scenario, what you see is that if you look at Mr. Lammer's, Sheriff Lammer's letter, which is in the appendix that discusses the 23, what you see in that scenario, if you go all the way off to the right, is I think what you see is not only do you see about $34,000 of quotes consolidation savings, but that's not taking into account all of the things that you brought up. And then if you look at the table even more clearly, you'd say the only reason you even get even close to that is because we go from 30 to 23. And the reason you have to do that is because if you look at that section, the average police officer with benefits in Glens Falls is 105, but we're at 135. So just think about that for a moment. The only way to achieve any savings is you gotta drop personnel. And you don't even get into, if you look at the lower scenarios, where you get into a few $100,000 again before a lot of costs that the city would continue to incur that we don't provide, you're down to like 17, 18, 19 officers, which our people have already said they wouldn't do it, or they shouldn't do it for that, let's put it that. They say 23 is what they consider to be the recommended number. So, I think if you really look at the consolidation study, my point is, it will be really helpful, and thank you, Chairwoman, for sending it out to everyone, because it refreshed my memory on it, and I think it really begins to put the numbers in perspective, which, in summary, are, how do you achieve consolidation savings when each unit of personnel time is costing you more? And the answer is, you gotta cut the personnel. So how far do you have to cut the personnel to get the savings? You almost have to cut it in half, and then the question becomes, can you provide the service for that?
Supervisor?
Stating it.
Yes,
I think I'm summarizing it. So look at that section,
focus on that table, understand how the numbers push. And I think that, you know, what this study's at least telling me is that consolidation is not achieving, any savings because our unit cost is greater.
Supervisor Montesi, did you?
I'd like us to forward a letter to the mayor, and as the chairman has said, we're saying no to $1.4 million or the 15-year thing. So what we are saying is, before we go any further, we need to have your common council say, yes, we want to proceed. And then lastly, as someone pointed out, maybe we ought to tell the mayor, you know, we're looking at 95% of the cost should be borne by the city, which would also show them a savings, but that's what, you know, we ought to be pretty definite, and we can't get into all of the stuff about the cost of this and that. Does your council want to do it? We're saying no to $1.4 million, but we will consider or look at cost of 90 to 95% that the city pays.
I would second that, or, that sounds good to me.
I think we should
Discussion? Go ahead, Supervisor.
also include in that, a more concise, presentation of what the expectations are, in terms of what the city wants to be, absorbed into the county. A much more concise list other than, you know, the backside of a sheet of a piece of paper. I think you need, something that has as many layers as a project like this would entail. We need a lot of information, and that requires a lot of research and thorough analysis for both sides. So I think that should be part of the letter.
Just looking for clarity, Ron, with your letter, are you saying you want to say no to the 1.5, you want a resolution from the common council, and then are you also making the additional offer of 95%, or?
Yeah, I mean, something that gives them at least a feel of 95% of the total cost. Now, that, if they buy into that, then, as Matt pointed out, there's a whole bunch of costs that we gotta start analyzing, but at least if we say no, and we get the common council to say, we wanna do it,
And if
well,
they
we're
wanna do
on
it at
better
95?
footing. Yeah.
At least, okay, I'm trying to think for their resolution purposes of return, so that we make sure we get all of our answers.
And that's still a savings for them.
Okay. Supervisor Sieber?
I'm still uncomfortable with saying any percentage. I think at this point it's premature, maybe saying no and pass a resolution, common council, then come back to the table. But we're all spending our time, we've been looking at this for years. I think they need to spend their time and look at it in the same type of depth that we are.
Anybody else? Discussion?
Was his motion seconded by?
Yes, he was seconded by Jim, so that if they want to remove the 95%, we need to amend the motion. But that's gonna be for committee discussion. What's the feeling of the committee? Are you comfortable with Ron's, or do you want to amend?
I support amending it, no percentage.
No percentage. Supervisor Frazier, anybody else? All right, would you two be willing to amend to just, no, and we'd like a resolution?
And we put in that we're willing to consider a percentage, but not put a number.
With the condition that they present a very thorough, list of expectations and where they see the numbers going and how that transfers out. Like I said, I want a lot more information.
Supervisor Sieber?
With all due respect, at this point, it's a city issue. I think they need to come to the table with a proposal that has some meat and potatoes to it, and we'll take a look at it. But for right now, say no, get a resolution, and come back. Is that unreasonable, or what are you thinking?
Yeah,
Actually, what I'm thinking is, is there precedent to have the mayor sit on these discussions, like
The mayor was invited today.
He was invited?
He was invited today.
Sorry.
I was unaware.
We certainly did include the mayor, and, he was notified last week, and he did indicate that he would not be attending today.
Madam
So,
Chairman?
Yes.
Just for the new members, Matt and Claudia on the board, and I know Dan does and Jim knows, there was a study done some 5-6 years ago with the Jamestown and Chautauqua County. I think it's important that you folks in the city read that. I know the mayor has a copy of it. I sent it to him. And you'll at least be able to thumb through it and get to the meat and potatoes, and that tells you the things that has to be done, where some of the costs are coming from, and they're very intricate. The study was done, took a number of years, but it was done by, Sean, what's the name of that company, Cost?
Center for Governmental Research out of Rochester.
Yeah, they've done these before, so I think you should read it, so you get an idea on what other costs that I can't come up with are in that. So it's very, self-explanatory. And Claudia, I meant what I said. You can tell the other Common Council members if they wanna call me at the office or whatever, I'd be more than happy to discuss it with them.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so we have a motion, just in the interest of time here, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Do we want to amend that motion to, what I'm hearing from the committee is no to the 1.5? We need a resolution from the Common Council, and that we'd be open to another proposal should the Common Council resolve to move forward and want to offer one? Does that,
Sounds good,
that
yeah.
seem to hit
Sounds
a
good.
happy medium for everybody? All right, Ron and Jim, are you all right with amending?
I would just like to leave open the possibility of a percentage.
I think everything's on the table.
Well, I just want the message sent to
Okay.
them. Could I, you've already done this, Sheriff, but could you put it in paper that you're gonna have ones, just the same things that you said at the meeting we had 2 years ago or 3 years ago, whatever it was, what the whole outlook, you'll have 23 officers, there'll be a separate zone and all of that, the whole thing.
I'd have to look, Sheriff. I know
I'm just saying, the members of the Common Council are new to this, so it would be nice to re-explain it.
I think, Jim, that the Common Council could certainly reach out to the Sheriff's Office, and I'm sure they would be happy to
Absolutely.
assist with any information the Common Council might need. All right, so have we amended our motion in our second? Everyone is good with that?
I'd like to add something to it if possible.
Oh, we wanna get through it tonight,
But
Rachel.
listen, you know what, this is an important issue to everybody in our
Certainly is. What would you like for an
I
amendment?
would like to, again, formally invite our mayor and members of the Common Council in the city of Glens Falls to attend these discussions and these meetings. I know you did when you met with them, but in this response, could we please formally invite them once again to attend?
I have no issue with that if none of the
Agree with
Yeah,
that.
I agree with that.
certainly.
Is that okay, Ron? Yeah. Who seconded that?
Jim seconded.
Jim.
I think I don't wanna misunderstand.
Sheriff?
We're not gonna have any more of these meetings until Glens Falls makes a decision.
Right.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
1, 2, and 3.
All right, so I think we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, any opposed? All right, thank you for hanging with us through that discussion, everyone. Supervisor Vanslo? Motion to adjourn, do we have a second? By Supervisor Montesi, all those in favor? Aye.
Good job.
Thank you.